Hello everyone, and welcome to another Nezhmetdinov game to brighten your day. It's a game from the 1963 Russian Spartakiade in Gorki, and Rashid Nezhmetdinov faces Vladimir Zagorovsky. Vladimir Zagorovsky was a Russian chess grandmaster, but not the International Chess Federation grandmaster, rather the International Correspondence Chess Federation grandmaster. It's a different organization, but nevertheless he was there. They granted him the grandmaster title, and he was also their world chess champion in correspondence chess from 1962 to 1965. So as this game was played in 1963, we could say that here Nezhmetdinov faces a world champion. So let's see this interesting game. E4. E5, knight to F3, knight to C6, and bishop to B5. Rui Lopez, A6, the Morphe's defense, bishop to A4, knight to F6, castles, bishop to E7, rook to E1, this is all standard stuff, B5, bishop to B3, we have castles, D3, D6, C3, and now knight to A5, going for the bishop, bishop back to C2, and now C5, so still all standard theory. Knight Bd2, we have rook to E8, and now knight to F1. Considering what black decides to play, this knight will either come to E3 or G3. H6, and now E4. We have B4 and C captures on B4. C captures on B4, and now knight comes to E3 finally. Bishop to F8, and now D4. We have queen to b6 now with a pile up on the d4 pawn, b3, pawn captures on d4, knight captures on d4, and now bishop to b7. Here bishop to b2, a very nice pawn sacrifice by Nezhmetdinov, knight captures on e4, and now comes knight to f5. Pawn comes to d5. Now the dark square bishop is also ready to jump into the game. It's the knight on e4 is now even more protected, but now knight to g4. And now, okay, if you look at this position, it's move 21. Look at Rashid's bishops slicing the board in half here, and the knights are very nicely placed on f5 and g4. And if you look at this, this couldn't possibly go wrong for black. And I like this so much, I'm actually going to use it for the thumbnail. So here we have h5 attacking Rashid's knight on g4, bishop captures on e4, and now rook captures on e4. Rook captures on e4 was the mistake. Here you have to capture the knight, but it's very hard to see why you have to capture the knight. After pawn captures, then you have this bishop to d4 move attacking the queen, bishop to c5, bishop captures, queen captures, and now rook to c1 attacking the queen. Queen moves to f8. And now, as your bishop is still attacked, you have to move it, bishop to c2, and now black can choose, between a couple of moves, but he can also exchange rooks. And after rook e8, bring another rook into the game, black has defended, and it's a very playable position for black. But here, instead of this, rook captures on e4 was played, and now Rashid has time to create, an attack that he so much enjoys doing. Rook captures on e4. We have pawn captures on e4, and now comes knight to f6. This is with check, of course, so you have to react to it. You can't capture with the queen, of course. The bishop is guarding the knight. King to h8 is, of course, met with queen to h5. This will be checkmate. So after knight to f6 check, we have pawn captures on f6, queen captures on h5, and now rook to d8. It's not all that easy to find a move here. Here, white's idea of a win is queen g4 check, followed by queen h4 check. From h4, the queen will be guarding the f6 pawn, and then bishop captures on f6 is coming with queen to h8 checkmate, and black will, of course, at some point have to sacrifice his queen for the bishop. So rook to d8 is played. Black tries an idea that will pay off. And here, rook to e1. Nezhmetdinov wants to play rook to e3 followed by rook to g3 checkmate, and of course, okay, bishop blocks, and then rook will capture, and then checkmate with the queen on h8. But he misses one very subtle idea. After rook to d8, he should have gone for queen g4. This wins immediately. King h8, queen h4, king moves, bishop captures, the move we mentioned, and now there's no defense against queen h8 checkmate. You have to capture on f6. Queen captures, and now black has no compensation for the queen whatsoever. So after rook to d8, Rashid thought, okay, rook e1 followed by rook e3 followed by rook g3. This, clearly wins. But he missed rook to d2. Zagorovsky finds a very nice defensive resource because now rook to e3. Okay, you cannot go rook d1 because queen is guarding d1, but you can simply capture the rook. Queen captures, and after f captures, rook captures on b2. And now black definitely does have compensation for the queen. Okay, white is still better because of the weird position of the black king, but this would be, just extra work. But rook to d2 was played, and now you cannot proceed with your rook to e3 idea. We have queen to g4 check, king to h7, and now queen to h4 check. Here, king to g6 was played. You have to go here, king g8, and allow bishop captures on f6, and then you have to go for queen captures on f2, queen captures, rook captures, and after king captures, now knight captures on b3, and you are down the exchange, but perhaps, with 2 against 1 on the queen side, you could maybe hold this, and you're still clinching on your e4 pawn. So this was a black's best bet. After queen to h4, king to g6 was played, but now comes Rashid. Bishop to d4, attacking the queen. Unfortunately, if you play rook captures on d4, then your rook and queen are no longer attacking the f5 pawn. White can simply push g4, and there is no defense against queen to h5 checkmate on the next move. So here, black had to play queen captures. We have queen to g4 check first, king moves, and now knight captures queen. Rook captures, and now black still has some compensation for the queen, but fortunately Rashid has queen f5 check, king moves, and now finally picking up the useless knight on a5. Queen captures on a5, and now black no longer has compensation for the queen. It's only a matter of time. We have rook to d3, going for the b3 pawn. Queen b6 attacking the bishop. Bishop moves, now queen captures on f6. Bishop to e6, we have queen g5 check, bishop g7, h3 now, making some breathing room for the king. Rook captures on b3, now rook captures on e4. Rook b1 check, king moves, now comes b3. Vladimir Zagorovsky is trying everything he can, but here comes queen d8 check, bishop blocks, and now rook to e5, of course preparing rook to g5 check. b2, now rook to g5 was played, king h7, and queen captures on f8. And after queen captures on f8, on move 43, Russian correspondent chess grandmaster Vladimir Zagorovsky resigned the game. He resigned. There are no tricks. Rook h1 doesn't really work. You can even capture it, doesn't really matter. But simply king g3, and after you bring the queen into the game, of course, this will be checkmate. So yeah, king f8, queen captures on f8, and Zagorovsky resigned the game. So yet another very nice victory here against the world champion by Rashid Nezhmetdinov. I do hope you enjoyed it, and you're enjoying this mini series so far before I return from Dubrovnik and then start the Bobby Fischer series. So like we said in the previous video, do share the name of Rashid Nezhmetdinov with your chess playing friends, or even if they don't play chess, you might get them interested. You never know, and one day perhaps Rashid will be granted his hard-earned grandmaster title. So yeah, I do hope you enjoyed it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with another Nezhmetdinov game to brighten your day. See you soon.